Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take source material you trust, kind of peel back the layers, and really try to hand you the core knowledge. So today, we are navigating one of the trickiest social skills out there. It's that delicate, often, anxiety-inducing art of casual conversation, small talk. Yeah, and for millions of people, this isn't some relaxed bridge to connection. It's often a source of real dread, actually. And yet getting good at it, it's pretty critical for confidence at work, for just connecting with people, whether you're just standing in line for coffee or maybe stuck next to a colleague on a delayed flight. You really need reliable tools. So we've been looking at a resource that claims to give you exactly those tools. We're doing a deep dive into the framework and, frankly, the pretty big implied promises of a program called English Small Talk Made Simple.
And that title, it's really quite something. It speaks volumes, marketing-wise, and maybe instructionally, too. It immediately narrows the focus. It's not just general English as the subtitle. It lays it right out. How to start and continue casual conversations. But the real hook, especially for you, the learner, is that phrase, made simple. It feels like it bypasses all the complex grammar stuff, right? It promises an efficient, clear path, quick knowledge.
Absolutely. And our mission today isn't really to learn the specific phrases from it, but more to dissect the thinking behind it, the framework itself. What actually happens when you try to simplify something that's normally so fluid, so complex, like just chatting with someone? What does trying to make it simple reveal about the skill itself? Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right there with that core promise. Simple. When you as a learner see that word attached to something that feels kind of chaotic, like walking up to a stranger, well, it signals accessibility, right? It's like saying, don't worry, you won't get lost. It implies there's a clear, maybe repeatable, structured way to do it. The antidote to feeling overwhelmed by too much information.
Yeah, but what's really fascinating, I think, is the inherent tension there between the word simple and the reality of small talk. Because let's be honest, small talk is often kind of messy. It's hugely contextual. You've got cultural norms. What's okay to ask here might be rude somewhere else. Then there's a register, how formal or informal you are, talking to your boss versus, say, a friend or a total stranger. Big difference. And of course, all the nonverbal stuff, the body language, tone of voice, that changes everything. So if this resource promises made simple, it must have found a way to somehow strip away or bypass a lot of that messy context. It suggests the creators think they found some fundamental, maybe universal patterns strong enough to work in most situations. They must be prioritizing, I'd guess, actionable techniques, things you can just do rather than, deep linguistic theory.
But wait a second. If you strip away all that context, the nonverbals, the cultural stuff, the formality level, aren't you just left with, robotic phrases? Don't they just fall flat the moment a real person responds in an unexpected way? Doesn't making it simple risk making it, fake?
That's the absolute core challenge, isn't it, for whoever made this resource? And looking just at the title, it suggests they think they've tackled it. See, if they can't rely on you knowing specific cultural details, what can they rely on? Probably observation. Shared reality. What's the most universal, least threatening way to start talking almost anywhere? It's usually commenting on the shared environment, right? Or the shared experience. Think about it. Instead of a personal question, which can be risky, the resource likely pushes openers like, wow, this coffee line is barely moving, or maybe didn't expect this rain today, did you? There's a low risk, observational. They don't need a ton of specific cultural insight to work. And that's probably how they deliver simple. By focusing on the shared immediate reality, not shared background or culture.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like a safe starting point. Using simplicity to guarantee you have something you can say pretty much anywhere. And yeah, that's a huge selling point if you're trying to build confidence fast, especially if you're, say, prepping for a new job or maybe traveling internationally. You need something reliable.
Exactly. Now, let's look at the structure they seem to have chosen. That's just as revealing, I think. The title, remember, it doesn't just say how to have conversations. It specifically breaks it down, how to start and continue casual conversations. Just deciding to split the skill into those two parts, that tells us a lot about their teaching approach.
Right, they've segmented the problem. Okay, let's dive into that first pillar, starting, This is often where the biggest mental block is, isn't it? That initial moment. People talk about activation energy in physics. It's like the psychological version of that. That moment you have to actually open your mouth, initiate contact. You risk being ignored, or worse, that really awkward silence, maximum vulnerability.
So a resource aiming for simple has to recognize that fear is the main obstacle for starting. Therefore, the techniques it teaches for starting must be about lowering that social risk, like we just discussed. They need to be repeatable, feel non-invasive, and be pretty neutral. The goal of the opener isn't some deep connection, it's just to get the ball rolling, to launch.
So if it's truly simple, maybe gives you what, like 3 to 5 reliable, low-effort openers, like the classic comment on an object someone has. Oh, I like your bag. Where did you find it? Simple, usually effective, and crucially, doesn't take much courage to say. It's a proven way to just, get the dialogue started reliably.
And then the instant that launch works, you have to shift gears. You transition to the second skill, continuing the conversation, and that's fundamentally different. Starting is that initial burst. Continuing is about maintenance, steering the conversation, building bridges between topics. It's about keeping the engagement going. Now, connecting this back, the resource can't just give you the same tools for continuing as it did for starting. That wouldn't work. Starting often uses statements, observations. Continuing needs techniques that actually generate more talk, keep the flow going. Usually that means questions. So the resource probably offers structured ways to ask follow-up questions, how to move maybe from a general topic to something slightly more specific, or how to link the present moment to a past experience or a future plan.
Yeah, and the real beast in continuation, especially if you're aiming for simple, is avoiding that dreaded pause of death. That moment when you both just run out of steam on the first topic and stare at each other. The successful, simple approach has to give you tools for that. Reliable ways to switch topics smoothly. Transitional phrases, maybe, or specific question types that open new doors.
Right. It's likely about teaching you to listen actively for a little thread. Someone mentions a hobby or a place they visited or how they're feeling and then quickly pivot. You need to be able to jump onto that thread with a related, probably open-ended question, something that requires more than a yes or no. The focus then shifts, doesn't it, away from being self-conscious about what to say next and more towards just listening and guiding the flow. The structure becomes a safety net.
Okay, that really clarifies the framework, the start, the continuation. Right. The context always matters, right? So who's making this promise? Who's behind this? Our source info tells us this is from a YouTube channel called Learn and Success, and it's specifically episode 80.
Okay, that name itself, Learn and Success. It sets a very clear expectation, doesn't it? It's outcome-focused, all about tangible, positive results, not just learning for learning's sake, which lines up perfectly with the likely learner profile, someone wanting practical skills for direct self-improvement. It suggests the focus is squarely on application. But that episode number 80, that's actually quite significant, I think. Analytically speaking, 80 episodes implies this isn't some one-off attempt. It suggests a large, established, ongoing series. They've been doing this for a while. They aren't just starting to teach small talk now. They've likely gone through, 79 previous versions or related lessons. That high number suggests they've probably refined their methods quite a bit over time.
Refined how, though? What does that imply?
Well, it speaks to distillation, most likely. Maybe in episode 5 they had, 50 complex rules or 20 very specific scenarios, but they probably realized that was overwhelming. So over dozens of episodes, they've likely filtered and filtered, testing what really works, what's essential. By the time they get to episode 80 and call it Made Simple, that claim has more weight. It suggests they believe they've successfully boiled it down to the core, maybe 3 or 4 universal principles that deliver most of the results. The simplicity isn't naive, it's potentially hard-won, based on a lot of trial and error, a lot of teaching experience.
Right. So what we're looking at is potentially a well-honed, structured, two-part approach to a really common social hurdle. And it's delivered by a source that seems experienced and very focused on practical results. The learner's confidence in the material might actually be built up before they even watch the first minute. Okay, so just to quickly recap our deep dive into this promise of English small talk made simple, we've analyzed the explicit framework they seem to be offering. This structured two-part simplification. First, how to get the conversation started, and second, how to keep it flowing. And this structure seems to come from a source, Learn and Success, episode 80, that suggests experience and a focus on results through refinement.
Yeah, and the key insight here, maybe for you listening, is just recognizing that even something that feels as messy and unpredictable as small talk can be broken down. By separating out the start phase from the continue phase, the creators make a daunting challenge feel like two distinct, manageable problems. Problems that can be taught and learned. Just realizing that structure exists can make the whole idea seem less intimidating, I think.
Absolutely. The resource potentially provides the how, the vehicle, the structure for the social journey. But, this brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. If a resource successfully simplifies how we talk, if it gives you the perfect structure, the techniques to kill awkward pauses, ensure smooth flow, does that just shift the entire challenge? Does mastering the how put all the pressure back onto the why you're talking? Does the authenticity, the actual content, the genuine connection, does that become the ultimate difficulty, the thing that the simple framework can't actually solve for you, something for you to maybe mull over or explore on your own? Until next time, keep digging deeper.